Welcome back. Now, a massive constitutional showdown in the United States Supreme Court, which has delivered its verdict. The Trump administration's push to end birthright citizenship has now hit a legal wall, with the court now backing the long-standing interpretation of the 14th Amendment. Now, the ruling that keeps intact the principle that those born in the United States soil are citizens, triggering a fresh political battle over immigration executive power and the future of American identity. And this seems to be the case that is centered on the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States are subject to jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States of America. Now, this is coming across as a setback, especially when it comes to President Donald Trump's birthright move, as the Supreme Court there has said that there is scant evidence provided for this revisionist view as far as the 14th Amendment that extends citizenship rights to every free-born person in this land. And we keep that promise today. And this is coming from the U.S. Chief Justice John Roberts. Now, at the center of the American citizenship debate is the 14th Amendment, which is a constitutional guarantee written into law after the Civil War by the founder of the 14th Amendment, Representative John Bingham of Ohio. Now, Section 1 of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution lays down three key principles. Those born or naturalized in the U.S. are citizens, states that cannot strip the citizens of their rights, and no person can be denied life, liberty, property, or equal protection without the due process of the law. Now, President Trump's administration argued that the phrase subject to jurisdiction thereof should be interpreted more narrowly, excluding children whose parents are in the country illegally or are residing temporarily on student work or other non-permanent visas. And this seems to be President Trump's order for no U.S. citizenship, especially for children who are born into the United States to parents who are in the country illegally, and also no U.S. citizenship for those children who are born in the United States to parents on temporary visas. However, legal experts have warned that President Trump's directive could have sweeping consequences, with some estimates suggesting that as many as 250,000 babies born annually in the United States could be affected, while millions of families might have to be required to prove the citizenship status of their newborn children. Let's connect with my colleague Akansha Swarup joining us here on the broadcast. Akansha, good morning. Well, the Republican president has been long arguing that the current interpretation of the birthright citizenship actually encourages the abuse of immigration system, while critics have accused his administration of pursuing discriminatory immigration policies.
Absolutely. And Amita, remember, this decision has arguably been one of those Trump-heavy losses that we've seen at the Supreme Court in the United States. That includes his losses on the Supreme Court decision with regards to tariffs, independence at the Federal Reserve. It was a 26-page opinion that was announced by Chief Justice John Roberts. And he's in fact gone on to say that every citizen in the United States who's born in the United States has the right to rights. And that in itself has in fact been seen as a historical landmark decision coming in from one of these conservative chief justices. Now, remember, this was a 6-3 decision, which was arguably the most anticipated with regards to what Donald Trump and the other Republicans have been referring to as birthing tourism. It also comes at a very crucial time when, remember, the Republicans have also announced that they'll be holding the conventions just ahead of the midterm election. And will this be impacting the U.S. president's already sinking popularity is another thing that we'll have to watch out for. But this is going to, in fact, spell a huge loss for the Republican support base as far as the complicated legal issues which have been roiling Donald Trump's already very controversial presidency are concerned. Yes. There are already words coming in. The U.S. president, of course, referred to the other decisions that the Supreme Court had come out with, whether it was to do with men participating in female sports or, say, even the amount of money that is to go to political candidates and parties. But this one is a decision that was taken right at the beginning by the Supreme Court, and Donald Trump, in fact, came out with his response right at the end. He's now calling out for the US Congress to step out with the legislation.
Absolutely, because we'll be talking about that aspect as well, what President Trump has said in reaction to the Supreme Court ruling. We'll just put that across for our viewers to see, because President Trump's bid to restrict the birthright citizenship, as he is now hit back at the ruling, calling it to be too bad for the country and urging the Congress to step in. Now, the verdict that is being seen as a major setback to one of his key immigration policies as well. And following the very ruling, Akansha, President Trump had signaled that he would pursue the legislation to restrict birthright citizenship rather than seek a constitutional amendment. So what legally could happen now?
Right. So that's why he's saying that, this will in fact be an easier route now instead of going through a complicated constitutional amendment, which is why he's calling out that the entire US Congress should step out and in fact come out with a legislation to curb illegal immigration. And that we'll have to see, because remember, the Democrats and the Republicans have been heavily divided on the way Donald Trump has been cracking down on immigration, and especially after we've seen how ICE has been taking to various parts of the United States. So we'll have to see how the US Congress responds to this. But remember, we know that as far as the House is concerned, the Republicans are going to be heading into a midterm. The Senate is where they already have a full majority. And so they could very much have an edge over introducing such a legislation. But the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, has already come out. He's in fact gone on record to say that this is a very textualist, originalist text that's been announced by Chief Justice John Roberts, and that this is, as far as the 14th Amendment is concerned, it's been heavily misused in terms of abusing US immigration policies. That's at least what he's voiced is largely the Republican view, but we'll have to see if this fight for cracking down on illegal immigration will actually shape up into a legislation or not, since the Democrats certainly have not been supportive of such an idea.
Absolutely, because here President Trump is now signaling that he would pursue a legislation to restrict the birthright citizenship rather than seek a constitutional amendment. And in a post on Truth Social, President Donald Trump has now described the court's decision as disappointing, but insisted that the Congress could still act. Akansha, appreciate you joining us here on the broadcast. In the meantime, we head into a very short break. You're watching Times Now.